So where did the tree of the knowledge of good and evil come from? It grew up from the ground. God finished creation in chapter 1. 31, everything was good. Chapter 2, verse 1, God rested. Then in chapter 2, we see the tree of the knowledge of good and evil growing. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil was not in Genesis 1. It wasn't God who created it. God created trees and herbs and told man to eat they have for his body. But then in chapter 2, we see a tree growing that did not exist in chapter 1. Now, remember, the book of Genesis was Moses' teaching notes. And when a teacher is teaching for the purpose of the understanding of his audience, he could use analogies and parables. There was no tree of the knowledge of good and evil in chapter 2. But there was a tree of the knowledge of good and evil in chapter 2. Please put on your thinking caps. Moses was teaching. So he uses parables. A parable has a fact, a fiction, and a little lesson. Out of the ground, not from God. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil grew out of the ground. So if Moses was using a parable in Genesis, what is the ground? The heart of man. What is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Evil thoughts. Moses was using a parable. Parabole. The Greek word. To communicate spiritual realities. Are you here? So, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil were thoughts that grew out of a man. How do we know that? Brother Paul, wherefore as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin. So man is the architect of sin and